It's a beautiful Friday morning and a good day to touch down the week and wrap up all of the happenings around the country and indeed around the world with your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and of course, one half of the goon is here.
Yeah,
we miss Kayode so much.
Hey, we're back next week. Thank you so much for being part of the program. As always, it's the Friday edition, and of course, we'll bring you up to speed, binging through the big happenings in the polity, whether it's politics, the security, the soft side of things like the creative sector. We have you covered. That's what we do right here. So wish you a happy weekend ahead of time. But hey, Bukola, what are you tracking?
Well, interesting developments, as particularly having to do with security and having to do also with the rising cost of food. If you saw that meeting yesterday between the Nigerian Governors Forum, amongst them rather, after which they issued a communique saying that they're willing to work with the federal government to harmonize taxes and levies to bring down the cost of food, and particularly blaming it on illegal checkpoints across the country. And I'm just wondering, interesting development, but the advocacy, for a review of the high cost of commodities had been on since the onset of this administration. Even the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms had identified that as a huge factor, affecting the rather high cost of food since the beginning of this administration. Why the deliberate and intentional approach to addressing it is coming now is something that we may need to interrogate and find out indeed what are the deliberate steps that will be taken by the different state police commands and the police force at the federal level to dismantle those illegal checkpoints, while at the same time rather ensuring that there is security on those very important highways, some of which more often than not kidnapping also takes place. And we must also high point the meeting between security chiefs, during which the NSA and another security chief came out yesterday without addressing the press. Of course, it's normal practice, for security chiefs to come out and sometimes choose not to say much. But we will be watching that space very closely in relation to our security agents, how well equipped they are from this point, and the results that they're able to achieve in the borders and in those in the hinterland, particularly where banditry and insurgency takes place. I wonder how you're weighing in on similar issues or different issues, Jeffrey.
Well, for me today, I don't want to just weigh in on national issues. I want to be a little bit of a motivational speaker.
It's a Friday, right?
Yeah, just to take things easy. For me, I just feel that if you are, quote, I don't like using the word, if you're poor or you believe that you're poor, I mean materially you don't have so much resources, do the best you can, work hard within the legitimacy of the law, within all legal means, to make sure that you upscale your streams of income. Because I just thought through a lot of things yesterday and I realized, Bukola, the poor is always the victim. The poor is always the victim. There's nothing that will be done in terms of policy direction that will affect the rich that much like it will affect the poor. So let's take an example. PMS subsidy that was there. It was helping both the poor and the rich. But some of the rich or people in that space were taking advantage of the system, gaming the system. Sometimes they don't supply anything to Nigeria, and they collected money. And Nigeria was struggling with a huge wage bill. So on one hand, we don't have money. On the other hand, people are gaming the system. So what did the government do? They removed subsidy. Now, fuel is where it is. Where it was over 1,000, less than 1,000 right now. The rich is still going on. What has happened to the poor? The poor is always the victim. If you talk about FX exchange, the exchange rate, no matter how you look at it, medication at least is how that helps the poor people when it comes to when government was subsidizing FX. Well, there was an arbitrage rent-seeking system where people were just making money without any form of enterprise. The government said, no, there cannot be multiple windows. We harmonized all of the windows, and now this is where it is. It has stabilized at 1,500 plus, and everything has gone up to that effect. Well, the rich will go on somehow, but it has affected the poor. Yet again, if you talk about electricity subsidy, I used to spend 100,000 naira that would take me for about 3 months. Now 100,000 naira worth of electricity, we struggle. We had to manage it so as for it to take us for, let's say, 1 month. Now, if you don't have a bit of means, slight bit of, just a minimum bit of means, how can the poor person afford 100,000 naira electricity for a month when minimum wage is 70,000 naira? So I just reel through all of this, that no matter the economic policy, no matter how well intended it is always the poor that will be the victim. So my advice this morning, don't be poor. Do everything within every legal thing to make sure that even if things get worse, you can survive for a bit before it gets better. Kola, that's why I say I want to be a motivational speaker this morning.
I think I'm going to enlist in your Wealth Creation 101 class. Kadi and I have been talking about this for such a long time.
Yeah, it's not just about wealth creation or so somebody has. So I just realized that no matter what happens, the poor will always have the short end of the stick. No matter what happens. The rich, the middle class, whether it's low or high or whatever, will look for a way somehow to get by before it gets better. There's some level of sustenance before it gets worse. But for the poor, the shock is quick and sometimes fatal. So get out of that space.
Indeed, and you know, the most valid and very inspiring stories come from the very unusual areas. So no matter where you're from in Nigeria today, your dreams are valid, so you can pursue them. But beyond the dreams, what are the current realities from this point? Speaking of which, what do we have for you today? We'll continue reflecting on issues bedeviling the polity, particularly coming off of the heels of the president's visit to Benue State and his address of issues of insecurity in Benue yesterday. So we'll review the outcomes of his visit, as well as rumors of plans to drop the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, from the 2027 presidential race. The party will be on the program today as the representative of the party, that's the ruling party, All Progressives Congress, to address these issues.
Yes, exactly. We'll also talk about election management and the fate of democracy. There's been a lot of talk around INEC. INEC has responded. People that want to form political parties are accusing INEC of being, you know, some accomplice in ensuring that doesn't happen. INEC has said there are rules to this game. And, well, INEC hasn't spoken officially afterward, but they made some statement as to the guidelines on how this works. We're going to look at democracy. We're going to look at election management and the fate of free, fair, credible election on the program.
And that's not all. We'll also visit or revisit River State, from the state of emergency entering its 3rd month to a non-indigent being nominated to head the State Independent Electoral Commission. We, head over to Rivers to discuss the seemingly constant political drama in the state.
Okay, so exactly, those are the things we'll be talking about on the program today. So in Bukola's words, I don't like, it's packed. And again, just remember that we have our channels. You can get us, bring that feedback, send us feedback, I should say, whether it's WhatsApp, email, or even hashtag CTV Morning Brief on X. And we have a question that we want to ask you. So when the president visited, he announced 2 days ahead and visited and came back. There were a lot of reactions. It's going to be part of our conversation. Do you think the president's visit to Benue State has actually lightened the burden on the hearts of the people of Benue? That's the question. Do you think that the president's visit and his remarks in Benue State has lightened their hearts or their burden after that visit in Benue State? That's a question you will have to answer sincerely. So all our channels, feedback channels, is up for you to get back to us so that we can amplify your voice right here on the program. And we have our poll system where we tell you the percentage of people or the number of people that said yes, that, and all of that, depending on the set of questions. But we'll take just a moment.
Jeffrey, don't forget to also be spotlighting the change of guard at the Directors Guild of Nigeria also today on the program.
Hopefully.
So we'll have the new boss at the Director Guilds of Nigeria later on the show today.
All right, so let's get to the papers. What the dailies are saying in just a moment. We'll be right back. right, let's get to the Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard is leading with the issues around insecurity. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movements. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movement. Survivors cry out over poor feeding, living condition. So if you want to find out details of this, you can go to page 7 of the Vanguard newspaper. What is the intel that the military got that was a wrong intel on the movement of these attackers? So we're beginning to hear things that we've not heard before, and we want to continue to hear those things because it looks like the president has a brief that all of us are not familiar with. When you listen to what the told the president, he majored on the fact that this is genocidal invasion by a set of people who are being on the mission to grab their land and chase them out of their spaces. But the president was speaking more of a communal clash and herder-farmer clashes. Well, experts have said that it may be some of the factors, but it's not a major factor here. But we don't know why the president majored on it. So we're beginning to see conversations or remarks in that sense. Benue massacre, troops got wrong intel on attackers' movement. So if you want to find out the detail of this, just go to the Vanguard newspaper, page 7.
And you may, if you wish to, interrogate the troops' position or the CDS's position on this one. You know, there were attacks in Akpa local government area of Benue. There were attacks in Gwe West, Guma local government area of
So
what happened to intelligence, you know, for those attacks? Cumulatively, we may be counting the death toll in Benue State since the beginning of this year, you know, hovering well above 500 in the last 6 months. So what happened to intelligence before those attacks took place? We must move away from the place where we continually make excuses for the failure of security, which is the primary duty of government, to deliberate actions and steps that actually secures arrest, prosecution, and, you know, jailing of those who are behind these heinous attacks. But let's go to this Nigeria newspaper this morning. This Nigeria newspaper also looks at that meeting that we earlier highlighted amongst the Nigerian Governors Forum. Listen to the headlines. Food inflation, state governors. Okay, we'll take another paper and wait for this Nigerian newspaper perhaps to come on later on. Let's go to the Guardian newspaper this morning. And the Guardian newspaper also looks at the issue of security. Take a look at the big story. Violent attacks, peacetime killings, question value of Nigerian life. It's a big story, and this appears to be exclusive to the Guardian newspaper. And you find details on the inside pages, 4 and 5 to be precise. So what exclusive, what are the details different from what we already know that Guardian you know, wants to highlight? You may want to pick up a copy and read. But there are other stories, of course, that you can also you know, chew on from the Guardian this morning. Listen to this. IBAS, that's the sole administrator, alleges sabotage at budget defense as Senate reiterates democratic rule. You find details on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper. There are other stories from the front page, but let's take a look at another paper this morning. Jeffrey.
Just beneath that, just staying with the Guardian again, Tinubu inaugurates specialist hospital named after him in Kaduna. This naming of places after sitting presidents is just a very, it's almost more like a political epidemic. It's just sad.
Some would describe it as a prospering of the trade of sycophancy under this administration.
I don't think the president, without holding brief for him, goes around saying name it after him. So all of these people who feel that they want to please the president, why I'm not big on it, for instance, is the fact that another president can come, or another leader of that state can come and change the name. For instance, I did not see any reason why you name the nation's international conference center. We go to Kigali International Conference Center and all these conference centers. You know, it's not as if you can't name things. That it wasn't even built by the president. It was renovated under his administration. And then you named it Bola Tinubu International Conference Center. What exactly is this? What happens to Nigerian International Conference Center?
You have to secure your second term in office.
You can't be scoring yourself. That's why I'm saying I don't think he goes around saying, what are you going to name after me? But in fact, there's a paper, one of the dailies that did a rundown of all the things that have been named after the president, including an army barracks or so, I think in Abuja. Is it a command center? There's even a command center called Batik. I think that was under the Ministry of Interior. I've forgotten where it is now. Well, what exactly is this?
And suffice it to say that things like this that promote that strongman politics, that holds sway in our democracy, and which is contrary to the value of democracy, really, because the biggest virtue or value of democracy, if you like, is representation, is allowing voices, especially of the people, those at the lowest rung of the ladder, to be highlighted, and not necessarily the promotion of the elite, the interest of the elite. So this promotes strongman politics, which we do not really need. And the president, in fairness to him, also needs those who will speak truth about the reality of things, in the administration, and not necessarily hide on the sycophancy, just to, curry his favor or get his interest. So we must, highlight these issues at this point in time and call for practical steps to moving Nigeria forward beyond naming monuments and institutions after
it's just a political sycophancy and epidemic all over the place. It's, this imperialist mentality of our political class and all of that. But sometimes I feel for the president, because you can imagine how many people go to lie to him. He can't be everywhere anyway. But on the issue of naming things after the president, I think it should stop. It should stop. When he's done with his, whether 4 years or 8 years, whoever comes can see, oh, this man did this fantastic job, and can name things after him. Not, anyway. Let's go to New Telegraph. New Telegraph newspaper. It said, breaches. This is very alarming, Bukola. Global scare as 16 billion Apple, Google, other passwords exposed. Breaches. Global scare as 16 billion Apple, Google, other passwords exposed. The writer says experts say records likely compiled by cyber criminals or white hat hackers. So you can find out what a white hat hacker is. Advise immediate change of countersign. Two-factor authentication. I'm happy I have a two-factor authentication. So this is a clear advice. If you have anything that has to do with Apple and Google, most of us have these emails attached to Google one way or the other. Page 2 is how you can get the details of this. This is a very scary situation. So I know some of you save some of your other passwords inside your email. So this is where it becomes very technical and very funny. In fact, so some of us, some people even use Google as password, your email as to access certain apps and all of that. So if you're not worried, I'm telling you why you should be worried. But what you can do has always been given as advice. Two-factor authentication. It's in everybody's phone. You can download it on any of the stores, if you will, so that you're not a victim of maybe cyber fraud or anybody using your name or email to commit any crime. That number is very scary because that's 16 billion. The entire world, I think we're about 7 or 8 billion. So 16 billion passwords compromised, or not compromised, exposed by these hackers. That is the suspicion.
And we have addressed this as much as possible on the program. So you just may want to go back to our YouTube channel, Channels Television's YouTube channel, and watch our Pacific segments.
All our techies
have pretty much giving us a world of education as far as the use of your devices are concerned. So, well, a good high points there from New Telegraph.
Okay, Bukola, you have the next one. Do we have this Nigeria ready yet?
Okay.
Okay, so those are the papers we're looking at the moment. But if we had this Nigeria, it actually was leading with that food inflation issue. And we've talked about this over and over. So we're super excited that the governors are beginning to come to terms. In fact, the president took a swipe at INEC when he was in Benue State, and he said to them, "What are you doing in INEC?" Well, whether that was some level of wake-up call, I do not know. But it's good, and the tax reform policy is one of the good policies of this government. It has its own areas and things like that, but there are so many positive. If you take your time to read the bills, 4 of them in total, is going to help one way or the other. It's not a perfect document. We could see the flaws, but there's a lot of good things that we're expecting the president to sign that in the next maybe 2 weeks or more, so that it comes into effect, and it's going to be gradual, some of the things that will be coming into effect. But one of the things that we've also been worried about is all of these guys you see on the road, from garage to everywhere you live. I'm speaking as somebody who lives in Lagos. I don't know where you live in Nigeria, but I'm sure you have these quote-unquote transport union people or area boys, I'm not sure what to call them, who collect taxes from articulated vehicles. If we could take those guys out of the road, look for another way to employ them or engage them, trust me, it will affect the price of food and by extension, help reduce inflation. So this is a good move from the governors, because the conversation has always been, they've been accused of using these people for political reasons during political seasons and all of that. So they don't have the boldness to face them and say, guys, get out of the way. So if now they have now decided to say, okay, it is time for these guys to get out of the way, because what you're doing is contributing to the prices of products or food, especially food, I think is a good move.
You know, Jeffrey, I recall that the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms had identified about 400 illegal taxes, you know, that food, you know, operators, you know, those trucks, drivers, that they have to pay, you know, along the agricultural value chain before the food eventually gets to the market where you purchase them. And imagine if the price of a commodity, you know, from the farm, fresh from the farm, were 1,000 naira, if you add those other 400 taxes, you know, on the price of that food, how much it will amount to, you know. So that's why this development, though coming late, is welcome. But what are the steps? We must ask again, that what are the steps that will be deployed to ensure, you know, that those bottlenecks are eliminated, you know, such that we can begin to indeed witness a reduction, significant reduction in the price of commodities. And this is, you know, should be high pointed, particularly against the emerging narratives that under this administration, the price of food staples has come down by 40%. Nothing could be further from the truth, at least if we're all going to the same market. But we'll also be reflecting on other issues as we begin our very next segment on the program today. Don't forget our question of the day. Has the president's eventual visit to Benue State done anything to lighten the burden of Benue residents as far as security is concerned? You can respond to these questions on our WhatsApp channel, through our email, and of course, hashtag CTV Morning Brief. Let's take a break now. When we return, we'll begin a very big conversation on the state of the nation. And we have the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress ready to respond to all of those concerns. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program, and let's get to the very first conversation on the state of our nation. Ajibola Bashiru is the National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, sir, and thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, pretty good. So let's get started with the immediate that has to do with the visit of the president. I'm not sure, I think whether I saw you or I'm not sure. Maybe you can help me with that, whether you were there or not. But the president has visited Benue State, and there are so many reactions that have trailed that visit. Some have said he was quite tactical. He spoke as he should speak as president. Some are saying he's quite underwhelming, some of the actions that were supposed to be taken. Some have said some of the things he said could have been said, maybe even without going to Benue. Some are saying he shouldn't have even gone to Benue because the impact is not felt. There are so many narration as far as this is concerned. But the bigger point of controversy, which we have been probing, seemed to be the characterization of what the key driver, because there are a couple of drivers of that conflict, or of that crisis we're facing in Benue at the moment. But before we talk about the characterization, what's your take on the president's visit to Benue? Do you think that his action from where you sit is going to bring the level of succor that we expect in the coming weeks or days or months?
Yeah, good morning. Yes, I was not in Benue. I was not in Makurdi. I was in Oka for another equally important assignment on behalf of our party. And but the leadership of our party, headed by Dr. Abdullahi Umaru Ganduje, was there on a condolence visit, and also, of course, part of the entourage of the president. Be that as it may, just as you have said, you said there are different perspectives as to the relevance, the value, and of course the necessity of Mr. President visiting Makurdi. Of course, when you have a country allegedly of about 180 or 200 million, and you have a democratic setting, you are bound to have heterogeneity of idea and diversity of perspective. So definitely people are bound to have different perspectives. But as far as Mr. President is concerned, and his handlers, it is felt that it is important for him to be on the spot of the dastardly incident that occurred in Makurdi, and that has become particularly perennial. And he did not just go there on condolence visit, it's also part of fact-finding visit. Apart from the public engagement, which was beamed live on national television, the president also had the opportunity of speaking outside the camera to some of the key stakeholders in the Benue state. And of course, you cannot be able to estray the value of those visits and the conversation until you begin to see the change, particularly in the modus operandi of the military operatives, and of course in the non-kinetic element in being able to tackle the crisis. I don't have power of clairvoyance. I'm a prophet. I'm a lawyer and a politician, so I cannot say that this is what's going to happen tomorrow or next day. But I know that that important signal, the importance that Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu attached to security of life and property, and he made that very clear in the statement to say that the life of the people is particularly more precious than cows.
Addressing that particular factor of his visit, which is the most important really, the life of the people. We have had cause to interact with people from Benue State in the last week or so, and we processed the president's visit and his address through them, and they said there was a disconnect between his address and the appeal, the passionate appeal by the tortive, which pretty much captured the reality of what exactly is happening. But still, the president doubled down on the need for peace, and in fact said that land should be made available, that there will be ranching. So they're identifying a disconnect in the president's position after the tortive's address. And they're saying, is the president appealing to northern elements? I'd like you to answer that.
You see, as far as I'm concerned, I told you democracy is about diversity of perspective, some of those people who thought there was a disconnect between the president's address and what was on ground have expressed their own perspective. As far as some of us are concerned, the fact that the president gave opportunity for Totif to give the address, which now the same commentators are saying is resonate with the concern of the moment, as vindicated and also validated the fact that a platform was created by the visit of the president to have a different perspective as to the issue about what is happening in Benue State. And as to people who try to create a division in Nigeria by saying the president is pandering to a northern element or a southern element. As far as we are concerned, the president is a Nigerian, is a detribalized Nigerian, and he has been able to come on the spot in Makurdi to be able to address the concern about the life and property of the Nigerian people. And of course, in his preference, the life of the people is far more precious than issue of property, which cow signify, and that says it. And as a state person, you don't, as the statesman, you don't expect the president to be taking side with anybody in the conflict. He's supposed to have a dispassionate consideration of the issue and then be able to charge the necessary state actors to address the various challenges.
Mr. Bashir, the reason why we're staying on this question is just like one of the last remarks of the Totif. He said if you misdiagnose, the treatment I will be giving will be a wrong one, which is where we're talking about that mismatch. It looks like defective characterization. So the president did a lot of political housekeeping, speaking to the governor, speaking to the political class, calling for peace and all of that. But resonating in that hall and outside that hall is to the effect that this is an unprovoked attack. The intent is clear. We had conversation even yesterday with some of the people. And then just about 5 minutes or so in that conversation, the president now started asking, why has no arrest been made? And that is literally unacceptable, because the president, the incident that happened on Sunday, because of that, the president rescheduled his visit to Kaduna that was meant to be on Wednesday to Thursday, so that he can be in Benue on Wednesday. So there were like 3 days, and president to come on camera and asking the IGP, why hasn't the president gets briefing every day. So is it that the president did not know that the arrest has not been made? So these are things that people are asking. That's on one hand I want you to respond to. On the other hand, the president spoke to the people who are the victims. He spoke to the political class in the state. He also spoke to the security forces to go after the killers, but nothing really seriously giving a strong statement to whoever is this terrorist or bandit that are killing people. That is where people are concerned and saying it's pandering.
I don't know what you want the president to do. And as well, with respect to you, you're entitled to your opinion and you express to distinct
Mr. Bashir, just a moment, sir. It's not an opinion.
But I want to say, please let me, you had opportunity.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Bashir, but just get the point.
If you want me to talk, let me possibly leave your studio so that you can be able to do all the conversation. You spoke for about 3-4 minutes without interjection, and I've not spoken for 40 seconds and you're already interjecting me.
All right, go ahead.
If this is meant to be an interrogation, you may as well maybe set up a courtroom setting. But it is meant to be an interview for us to express our opinion, which may well, because of democratic license, be different. Then you allow me express my opinion. But if you have already formed a rigid opinion to castigate the president and castigate the administration, you may as well excuse me from this conversation, please.
Please go ahead with your response, Mr. Bashiru.
My response to you is that people have different perspective and interpretation of situations. And the fact that the president was in Makurdi and was able to allow different perspective to come up to be able to interrogate what has happened in Benue State. And he did not only go there, on the spot in Benue was also people who are critical to be able to resolve that political and security situation. You have on ground the National Security Advisor, you have the IGP of Police, you have the Chief of Defense Staff, and as well as all paraphernalia of Nigerian Army security. If that will not suffice to show the seriousness and commitment of the president to addressing that very serious issue and assembling political actors, assembling religious organizations, for me, if it is about fault finding, there's nothing anybody can do. If the only thing you can surmise from the visit of the president is to have an array of criticism and not see the other side of it, then there's nobody I can help you in that regard, with respect.
Well, Mr. Bashir, this certainly is not about fault finding. It's an aggregation of thoughts of the pulse of the people from Benue State. It's a testy conversation, but difficult conversations must be had in order to reflect all sides. And that's why I'm going to stay with Benue State for a bit. Some of the concerns coming through also is the fact that the president did not visit Yelwata community, and that, you know, the weather was certainly not an excuse for the president not to have visited, because when politicians want to achieve anything, they go all out to do it. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, asking for arrests, asking whether arrests have been made or not in public, they say will necessarily not address the matter, because we had the governor here some days before the president's visit, and he said he had spoken with the president, and he had in fact briefed the president, and they were asking for directives for retooling of the security agencies and in fact shoring up of manpower in the military. These are the concerns that we're putting through to you this morning, and we want you to respond to them.
I can't respond further with what I've stated, and you can as well come up with your own litany of excuse as the basis upon where it is not necessary for the president, and absolute futility of the effort that the president is actually making in that regard. I think that I'm done with issue of the Benue visit of the president, and I don't have anything to say. And as I've told you from the beginning of this conversation, we're in a democracy. People are entitled to have different opinion and different perspective, and the fact that you have a different opinion and different perspective does not mean that your own perspective is the entire truism.
All right, Mr. Bashir, the reason why we're staying, well, it's unfortunate that you don't want to talk about Benue. We should talk about security.
You want me to agree with you, and I've told you that
Mr. Bashir,
I don't agree with you. So if it is about agreeing with you, then you will as well put word into the mouth to agree with you. I've said that you are entitled to your view, and I'm entitled to my perspective about the utility and the value of the president visit. And that should put pay to it. If you want somebody else to express an opinion that aligns with your own, you can come the person to the studio to come and do so, with respect to you.
Mr. Bashir, you're getting it all wrong.
I'm entitled to my view. It's not in a democratic
if you can at least allow me to speak, Mr. Bashir, you're getting, it's a conversation. We're having an engagement about the state of our nation. That's what is supposed to be scrolling on the screen.
And I've told you
just
my
hold on, Mr. Bashir. Just hold on.
Your own perspective on my own, please.
Just hold on. If we're asking questions, the primary, you are a lawyer, a senior one at that matter. You've been an attorney general.
You are not asking questions.
I'm not expressing an opinion. I'm relaying to you.
Hold on. I have a PhD in law, and
Mr. Bashiru, I'm expressing to you some of the
I'm Dr. Bashiru, please. My correct title is Dr. Bashiru, please.
Which one is which one is more important? Is it the title or the Okay, Dr. Bashiru, so that you can respond to me.
Yes, please.
I am saying to you.
I say I'm not responding to you on Benue again. I've expressed my opinion, and you are entitled to your own opinion.
That is the mistake. We're gonna move on.
Then you don't have any business being here. You may as well excuse me from your studio.
We're going to move on from Benue, but I wanted to bring to your attention that the primary responsibility of the government is the protection of lives and property. And when we bring questions to you, this is things we have aggregated from the people, things you have even seen for yourself, and saying that this is an opinion is very unfortunate. Anyway, since you don't want to respond, I'm not going to push you beyond that out of respect for my guests. But let's go on to other issues. But that's quite unfortunate, because that is the main thing we should be talking about.
It's also unfortunate that you cannot know a difference between opinion and a factual statement.
Well,
so that's my
I know exactly, Mr. Bashiru.
If you cannot make a decision between opinion and fact, you say you aggregated what you are saying from certain concerns. And of course, I want to ask you, what is the sample size of your opinion? How many Benue people have you spoken to? You cannot sit down and try to ram a perspective and an opinion.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Bashiru. Can we move on? I don't know what you're talking. Can we move on now? Can we move on?
I'm still correcting you that I'm Dr. Bashiru, please.
Okay, Dr. Bashiru.
I hand a PhD, and that it's not titular. So I'm Dr. Bashiru.
So let's not deflect on the issue, Dr. Bashiru. So in case I forget.
I'm not deflecting.
Let's not deflect on this. Let's stay.
But it's very important for you to appropriately address me on the national television. I do not earn a PhD by honorary. I'm a doctor. So when you want to address me, you say Dr. Bashiru, please.
All right, Dr. Bashiru, we need to calm down. So can we move on now?
Thank you. I'm not in any way.
All right. All right. Fantastic.
I'm not in any way.
We're not fighting. We're going to have a conversation again. So it's not war.
But you can't round,
so let's talk about
on me.
Let's talk about what played out in Gombe State, Dr. Bashiru. So if I mistakenly say Mr., just forgive me. I hope you understand. So let's go to what played out in Gombe State. And in Gombe State, there were issues about endorsing the vice president as well as it's been done for the president. And that caused almost a very physical situation where there was almost an assault, what we learned. First and foremost, I wanted to find out from you, Dr. Bashiru, has that issue been brought to rest from where you sit?
As far as I'm concerned, there was no issue. I was physically present in Gombe State, and after the summit, we had a reception at the government house. So if the whole thing is about looking for issues where there are none, I don't have anything to say. The summit was the summit of the Eastern people. And just as I've said, there are people in a democratic setting are bound to have different opinions. Some people in the Northeast felt that it sufficed to give endorsement to the president, and the president would then be in a position to decide who will be his running mate in 2027. Some other people are of the view that it is also important, since the summit is being held in the Northeast, that the vice president coming from the Northeast should equally have an endorsement. But what I know is that even at the national convention, where candidates for president, the candidate for president election will emerge, it's only the president candidate that will emerge at the convention. Then the running mate issue will be done after that. As far as our party is concerned, and that's where we have not made any statement or get ourselves involved in the politics of the Northeast. As far as we are concerned, the national summit held in the President Villa has endorsed Mr. President based on his track record, and a large spectrum of stakeholders in our party have also overwhelmingly given endorsement to Mr. President. The question of running mate is not yet on board, and nobody has come here to say that the president has made any adverse decision as regard the present president. So it's not an issue as far as we are concerned.
But you know, some of the time there is no smoke without fire. Prior to this time, there had been reports that there were plans by the party to drop the vice president in the 2027 presidential election due to the need for realignment to better position the party to win the election in the north. There is no clarity on where the VP slot will be zoned to. But I want you to speak to that, and also to the VP of the party Northeast doubling down on the fact that it's the president that reserves the right to pick his vice president, which is also fielding this particular rumor.
On a lighter note, Bukola, in the world of science, there can be smoke without fire. So, as far as we are concerned,
but you know what I mean,
has no basis and will not detract from the work of the party in mobilizing and galvanizing Nigeria towards total victory in the 2027 general election. The question that is on board now is about the track record of the renewal agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and that has been laid to rest in the national summit, where all the key stakeholders are participated, where overwhelmingly endorsement have been given to Mr. President. The question of the running mate may as well be what galvanize some people to begin to speculate of imaginary crisis within the APC. If APC is a strong, united and cohesive political organization, and we will not be distracted by such baseless speculation.
But, sir, can the party afford to risk the block of votes that can come from the Northeast? And, you know, just to support that, there were reports that there was a deliberate action to get supporters of the vice president to that venue that day, and they came in a number of buses. So can the party afford to risk the block of votes that will come from the Northeast? If you consider how much votes the party won in the 2023 presidential election from the Northeast.
I think you are stepping your question with an assumption that a decision has been taken that the vice president will not come from the northeast and that the vice president will not be Senator Kashim Shettima. I said that has not happened, so I will not engage in hypothetical and academic question as to whether the party is considering moving the vice presidency from the northeast. It's hypothetical and quite speculative, and I will not engage in that conversation for now.
All right, Dr. Bashir. So let's talk about, I want to bring two things in one. One, this is politics. Anything is possible in politics. You've been in this game for a very long time. So would you say that the party is not worried about the triggers they saw with what played out in Gombe State? That's on one hand. On the other hand, there's a coalition lurking around. I don't know how far they will go. I don't know how successful that coalition will end up. Is the party also not worried about that coalition? So two questions in one.
I think I've said that there's no necessity to have any issue about what happened in Gombe. I told you we had, on the lighter note, Santos meal after the summit in Gombe before we flew down back to our respective locations. So, but of course, it gives a very good opportunity for people who are wanting to think that there will be crisis within the APC to be able to feast on such kind of minor disagreement. On the issue of coalition, I'm a student of political science. I don't know whether there's any such thing as coalition in a presidential system that we have. It's either people want to march into new political party or they want to form new political party to face the APC. But to talk about coalition, I don't know. I stand to be corrected by people who are more experienced in political science and political aggregation than me. How will a coalition work? Is it that PDP, SDP, ADC, as other party want to be on the same ticket, which is not possible under the present arrangement, or is it they are considering merger? So I would say that the whole sloganeering about coalition are mere question of sloganeering, which has no basis in political reality that we have. Quite apart from that, the talk about the sloganeering about coalition is an ambition that the so-called leading opposition party have shown and have admitted that they have failed as political machinery capable of governing victory for themselves in 2027 election. Rather than wasting our time and losing sleep over whatever sloganeering anybody is doing, we are committed to continue to strengthen our party, deepen our practices, and ensuring that we reach across to the nook and crannies of Nigeria with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu ahead of the 2027 general election.
Just before we let you go, Dr. Bashir, let's go to Osun State for a moment. Both sides, that's the APC and the PDP, are giving different interpretations to the latest Court of Appeal decision to disallow the APC from relisting its case in the local government election from 2022, I believe. This is reminiscent of what happened a few months back. But the bigger consequence of this is the stronghold over the leadership of the local government councils in Osun State. Isn't the party worried? And in fact, there are reports that the PDP is contending the withholding of local government funds from the local governments in Osun State. Isn't the party worried about administration at the grassroots, which is really lacking and is in fact affecting workers in Osun?
Yes, we are worried, but Adeleke PDP government in Osun is a government of impunity, and there is really no need for any controversy about the latest judgment of the Court of Appeal in Akure. The judgment merely refused to release an appeal against a federal court decisions in the APP matter. But there was a judgment, February 10, of the same Court of Appeal, which dismissed the case of the People's Democratic Party on the same facts and on the same law. So as far as we are concerned, the February 10 judgment is a judgment of the Court of Appeal, which stated that the challenge to the election of our chairmen and councillors was a futility, and to that extent, they are the rightful person to be in office. But rather than pursuing the issue legally, you can recollect that Adeleke administration set non-state actors against our functionaries that led to the death of Remi Abbas, the chairman of the local government in Irewole local government, and many other of our members were also maimed. The government of Adeleke is very steeped in impunity. What he has also done was to collude with the Norgay and workers in the local government administration to refuse to work on the basis of absence of security. This is also quite, unfortunate. And for Adeleke administration to be talking about withholding of government and of allocation to local government and talking about impunity is actually crocodile tears, if I may use that word, from somebody, an administration that is steeped in impunity. This is an administration that sacked people who were legally constituted as members of the local government education authority, members of the Judicial Service Commission, Civil Service Commission, and all other statutory bodies established by law were sacked immediately by the Adeleke administration without any recourse to the law court. So it's an administration that has connived with certain elements within the labor union to seek to collapse the local government administration in Osun, which shows lack of respect for procedure and also rule of law. We want to implore Nigerian people to prevail on Adeleke administration to allow local government administration, which is the closest to the administration, to the people, to be able to engender better life for our people, to operate under the leadership of the APC elected local government chairmen and councillors. All
right, Dr. Bashir, I'm asking you this as not as a party man, not as APC man, but as a lawyer. So the first Court of Appeal judgment that was against the PDP, the court said, the appeal court has said whether it was far premature or one of those terms that were used. But now the relisting that was wanted by the APC in the APP case because of suspicion around want of diligent prosecution. Now that that is not in favor of the APC, what is the subsisting judgment that the council should go by? Because on one hand, the APC is holding on to that of the PDP judgment that favored them. On the other hand, the PDP is holding on to this refusal to relist, now saying that whatever happened at the trial court is a subsisting judgment that should be respected because it canceled the election. As a lawyer,
there's hierarchy of court in Nigeria. The Court of Appeal is higher in the hierarchy, and that is elementary, that even a year two students in our colleges of law will know. There's a Court of Appeal decision that set aside a judgment nullifying the election of local government chairman and councillor, which was delivered on February 10. For me, the application to release the APP case was superfluous because where there are decisions of a lower court, which is the federal court, being tied with being held on to by the PDP government, and you also have a Court of Appeal decision which has set aside that judgment, which are the same fact, the same law with that APP federal court decision. It stands to reason that any government that is that's ennobled by rule of law will respect the February 10 Court of Appeal decision as the subsisting decision, and that is the tenor of the opinion rendered by the Chief Law Officer of the Federation, Chief Prince Lateef Fagbemi, that the essence of the February 10 judgment is actually to say that there is no valid challenge to the election of the local government chairmen and councillors of the APC stock. And that I stand with the decision of the Court of Appeal of February 10, and of course the opinion of a learned senior advocate and Chief Law Officer of the Federation, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, on the matter.
All right, Dr. Ajibola Bashiru. So I'm sure we're okay now. Dr. Ajibola Bashiru, National Secretary of the All Progressives Congress. Thank you for coming on the program. And it's not war, it's a conversation.
Of course, it's not war, and I can see that I crack more jokes than the two of you together. If you have to do a census of jokes, I think I win. That contest.
This is
so nice having conversation with you.
Dr. Bashiru, this is a serious matter, but we thank you for coming on the program. Thank you.
Yeah, very serious matter. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to another leg of the conversation. Join us again in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. And so we're staying with matters that are on the front burner as far as the polity is concerned. And so from the APC now, let's take a general overview of political parties and particularly party formation. Not one, not two times, at different times during the conversation on the need for a formation of a coalition to unseat the current administration. Members of that coalition, or those raring to join the coalition, had accused the Independent National Electoral Commission of sitting on party registration for those, interested members who want to form a new political party. And INEC has since responded to those allegations and, sort of fired back, saying that no amount of blackmail will make INEC, be distracted from the real issues, saying that the party is more important than the quality than the quantity of parties. Let's have that conversation this morning as we have joining us on the program Mr. Ibrahim Kalgo. Mr. Ibrahim Kalgo is a member of the People's Democratic Party, and he joins us from our Abuja studio. We also have joining us Mr. Ezenwa. He's a chairperson, Partners for Electoral Reform, and a board member, Yaga Africa. Both gentlemen join us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, and thank you so much, sirs, for joining us on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Let me start with you, Mr. Kalgo, and I'd like you to sort of respond to what INEC has said. And if you read that report, INEC is saying that some of the documents, it was speaking on the requirements for registering a new political party. And INEC has said that some of the documents that are required from proposed political party formation is the manifesto, the title deed of the property of the said political party, occupation. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Ibrahim?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. I'd like you to respond to INEC's explanation, clarifying these accusations of its refusal to register a political party. And if you read that report, yes, INEC is saying that these are the things that are required: constitution of the proposed political party, manifesto, title deed for the property that the political party would be occupying, amongst other things, addresses, phone numbers. I wonder if you have inside information on the proposed coalition from key opposition members, some of whom were in the current administration, formerly in the current administration. Have they met all of these requirements and yet are not getting any feedback from the electoral umpire?
Thank you very much. I think INEC is being biased here, and then also afraid because the coalition is here to defeat the APC come 2027 election. So what we are saying is just like INEC working hand in hand with the APC government. I don't understand, these are political parties or groups who are trying to come and form a party and then give it a platform for the Nigerians to vote for a new faces and a new choice of their own choice. So if you are now telling me that INEC are now saying, no, they have not met the requirements, they refuse to acknowledge any of these applicants. How many of them? More than 70. Are you telling me all the 70 are wrong? Are you saying that all the 70 applicants have filed, do not come and comply with the whole requirements for them to be created as a new party? You know, by law, when you send a request to INEC on a new party, if INEC if INEC acknowledge you, and within after 90 days, you are assumed to be registered automatically. But what we are saying now is this government, Is INEC now working hand in hand with the APC? What are they afraid of? Is it the coalition? Quite sure Nigerians are tired. They want a new government. The APC government have failed Nigerians woefully, and they're doing nothing about it because there's no any changes. This is 2 years down and nothing to show on the ground for all Nigerians. What are we seeing? Busy suffering, people dying on a daily basis, unemployment, so on and so forth. So we, the coalition, we are pushing to see that INEC accepts these requests, register us as a new party, so that come 2027, we can give Nigerians the real dividend of the government they are looking for.
Mr. Kalgo.
But unfortunately, INEC is afraid, or I would say APC is afraid, or I would say they are working hand in hand. Because I fail to understand what is so difficult about all these issues.
Mr. Kalgo,
there's no anything wrong about registering a new party.
Has the coalition met the requirements? I'd like you to be clear, please. Has the coalition met the requirement, and yet INEC has not given it feedback on its registration request?
Absolutely. We are law-abiding citizens. We know all the requirements INEC are looking for, and we have submitted all these things. Why are they afraid of us? Is it because they are afraid of the theme of Atiku, Obi, Amechi, and others? So I think INEC is being biased here. INEC is afraid. And I think one of the biggest problems we're having in this country is INEC first. Not even the president himself, the Aswaja administration. INEC must do the right thing. Whether they like it or not, Nigerians have to force INEC to do the right thing, because INEC will either one of these days put this country into chaos.
All right,
people are tired.
You
cannot subject people into suffering.
All right.
You cannot make it a one-party system.
All right, Mr. Kagbo, let's bring in Mr. Nwago. Mr. Nwago, I'd like you to weigh in on this, because there are layers of unpacking we need to do. And you have worked closely. You've been on the field. I don't know how many elections you've covered, but several of them. You know how this game is played. You understand the nuances around it. Picking back from what Mr. Kagbo has said, the INEC has said, look, there are laid down procedure. There is the party registration guideline and the registration in the guideline of INEC 2022 that is written in English of all the processes on how to register a political party. But the opposition now is accusing INEC of not being willing to register them. INEC has said that is not the case here. What do you make of what is playing out here from your own neutral point of view?
Well, thank you. I just think that it's going to be very dangerous to continue to allow politicians to give us talking points. One of the things that needs to happen will be to always ensure that we dig deeper when they put up issues. For instance, if INEC says you have not fulfilled the conditions for registration, what to do will not be to say, oh, you are afraid of us. What will be correct will be to show Nigerians in evidential terms that you have fulfilled those, that you have a constitution, and that constitution arose from the processes that would lead you to have a constitution. You don't just sit down and write a constitution, do a desktop printing of the constitution. There are processes that lead to it. You have to provide evidence that all those took place. And I would be happy to find the promoters of the new party come clear, not just in terms of to say, look, these are the things that we have done, and INEC has refused. Because INEC, I would want to be on the side of the INEC, because INEC is a law, is a creation of the law. And if INEC, by any means, is breaching the law, you can also approach the court and say, we have fulfilled what the law says we should do, and INEC has. And in everything that I've seen, I don't know anywhere that people have gone to court to compel INEC to register them having fulfilled the condition. That is number one. Number two, I don't think the promoters of the coalition can successfully be called opposition. Opposition is not an individual. You don't, at best for now, they are non-governmental individuals, or if they have formed an organization, they are non-governmental organizations. The contemplation of opposition will be political parties, registered political parties. And as we know now, there are 18 thereabout of them that are opposition political parties. And in the National Assembly, 46% of the House of Representatives is made up of the opposition political parties. And in the Senate, you have about 22%, 21% of members of the Senate who are in opposition. So when there are individuals who are not any new kid on the block, because some of the promoters of these things are also people who are in political parties, who have been in the dominant political party, who have governed the country at a particular period in time, and everything for which they are promoting these new parties happened under their care. Some of them have been governors for 8 years, some of them have been chairmen of boards, some of them have been even chairmen of political parties. So the truth is that we would have to understand what the motivation for promoting new parties, when there are 18 political parties that can drive the same issues they have been driving all these past 22 years, or 25 years of being in this.
Mr. Khan, well, let's come back to you, Mr. Mr. Eisenhower has raised a very important concern here. I think we have about 19 political parties, 18, 19 political parties. Why do we need a new political party or a set of new political parties? Mr. Kakbo, if you can hear me, I was saying that we already have almost 20 political parties. Why do we need a new platform or a new political party again?
All the other political parties have been compromised. And the APC government is doing all it takes to see that we did not get a very good platform to contest, to fight against them in 2027. So if you look at all these political parties, some of them are either working for APC indirectly or directly. And we want to have a platform where we are more comfortable, where we can do and undo, and we can set our own constitution rights, where we can make it, we don't want a situation whereby we have to have any issues with the National Working Committee of the existing party, or any party that have any issue before in the courts or anything like that. We want to have a fresh start. We want to have a fresh party whereby there's no any cases of a National Working Committee, no any court cases, nothing like that, so that we can be the one to set our constitutional rights. We can be the one to set our National Working Committee down to state ESCO, down to local government ESCO as well. This is one of the reasons why we're trying to create a new party. And why is INEC holding on to this? Why is this so difficult? What is there? It's just a new political party. This is politics. All of us must not be in the APC. We don't have to be in the APC. People are tired of the government of the APC. They want a new change. Yeah, we know some of them have been governors, vice presidents, some of them have been chairman of the party. Yeah, but if you look at their record, you see clearly that when Amechi was governor of Rivers State, that was the best time you can see a best governor. That was the best governor in Rivers State till date. And then when you look at the former vice presidents, I was one of the most acting vice president who have done so many things, so many good things for this country. There are so many things, if I can begin to name them, I'll take much of your time. And then we have people like Nasir El-Rufai. The best time Kaduna had was during the National RFI. So these are the kind of people that Nigeria wants to be in government. And the APC government knew that if these people come together under one platform, they are going to defeat them. They are going to unseat the Tinubu administration. That is what they are all afraid of. And that is why INEC is dancing to their tune now.
Well, my own question will be in the reverse, and this is to Mr. Nwagu. The opposition is saying that INEC, since it registered over 70 political parties about 4 years ago, hasn't registered new parties, and that there is a need, for more formation of political parties for expression, for political expression. Is there any limit to the number of political parties that can operate in Nigeria?
But indeed, my personal position is that INEC has no business registering political parties, and I'll tell you why. If you have freedom of association, freedom of assembly guaranteed by the Constitution, my quick take would be to say that INEC should ordinarily just place conditions under which people can appear on the ballot, rather than getting into the brouhaha of registration. But having said that, there is a law guiding how organizations can become political parties. And I'm saying, if truly anyone thinks that there's a breach, of the law by the regulator, regulator of political parties and the registrar of political parties in Nigeria, the thing to do is to avail Nigerians of that, look, laws have been breached. We have approached the court to compel INEC to do the needful. And if that has not happened and we are having, politics, we are politicking around the registration of political parties. And I really think that Honorable is not fair to the other political parties by, saying that they have been compromised. I think it is something that is not fair to say, because those political parties exist in their own rights. I'm very close, working very closely to many of those political parties. And just recently, I've invited the chairman of IPAC and others to a program that I host on another station. And I understand from them also that the challenge they have is that some of these people who want to take over their political parties are coming in with viruses that they also don't want. And that is why they are elbowing them and making sure that they don't have access to their political parties. But more importantly is to say that in other places, in the US, for instance, there are more than 400 political parties. Only about 14 or 13 come on the ballot. So you even have what you call American Marijuana Party. All kinds of political parties exist, but you cannot come on the ballot except there are conditions with which. And right now, INEC is saying for you to even remain on the ballot, you have to fulfill certain conditions. I think you have to win how many state assemblies and the rest of them. So the promoters of this political party have a bigger work to do. The bigger work to do will be to say, if you have fulfilled the conditions, you can bring your promoters to Channels TV, show evidence that you have done so, not just by verbal conversations in the way, and that in the breach of that and.
Oh dear, we seem to have had an interruption in the feed from our guests in Abuja. We'll try to rectify that as much as possible. But, Mr. Nwagu's line of thought is pretty interesting. And if we cast our minds back to 2013, there were contentions also over the delay in the registration of the All Progressives Congress at the time, with a statement put out by INEC under the leadership of the former boss, Professor Tahiru Jega, that nothing could be further from the truth, that there are procedures to registering a political party, and those procedures must indeed be followed. And we know that the APC is, a an aggregation, or if you like, a conglomeration of different political parties. So if that is what is playing out, with this coalition led by key actors from different political parties under this administration, would it be, in line with democratic principles to deny them expression as well? Mr. Nwagu, please go ahead and land on your thoughts, and perhaps you want to respond to some of the latest projections about what is happening now.
I think we should talk in terms of your right to gather, your right to assembly, your right, all of that, right, none of it have been breached because the coalition folks have been meeting, but there are conditions for registration. What we need to determine is to be clear whether they have met those conditions. If they have met those conditions, I don't see what INEC will benefit by not registering them. Let's be clear. In the 2023 election, the president of the country lost election in his state of origin and lost in his state of residence. I think it's very important because by the time you want to give the impression that this INEC is working hand in hand with the position party, you have to provide some clear-cut evidence so that you don't malign an institution, just for the purpose of promoting whatever political interest that you have. You will also remember that the FCT election that held the same APC lost woefully in almost 3 local governments, as a dominant political party in elections conducted by this same INEC. So we have to be more nuanced in how we put out our public institutions and put a feeling of, distrust, create distrust in the mind of the public about their regulatory powers. So I would think, quite frankly, that what will be fair will be to show evidence that these conditions have been fulfilled and that INEC has refused to register. But your right to association, your right to assembly, I think that is freely going on. But we have a regulator, we have a registrar of political parties, and it is within their books to be able to say, this is how you can become a political party. And it is also in the right of the politicians to use whatever means they can to be able to, get registered, but they must also fulfill the law.
All right, Zakabo, your closing thoughts. Now that this is the situation, it takes quite some time. If you look at the guideline, if you look at INEC's guideline, it takes quite some time for you to be able to put together the process of registering a political party. I've looked through some of those guidelines, and it's almost a race against time because we're less than 2 years to the next general election, if you will. What is the next line of action for the coalition now?
It's one of the tactics INEC is using to frustrate us because primaries should likely start by early next year, and if you look at it, the time frame is not suitable for us. We, the coalition team, we will do all it takes. We'll make sure that we push hard for INEC to do the right thing. We want INEC to do the right thing before even the election. INEC must be on its feet. INEC must do what is needful. INEC must be free and fair. Let it be as independent as it's supposed to be. They don't have the time, or they choose not to respond to all the applicants, not only us, including others, but they have the time to go and launch, to allow the FCDA to build them a new building. So I think they are doing all this intentionally. They are doing this to frustrate us, but they won't frustrate us. We are ready, we are determined, and we know what to do. Either ways, we have other options. But INEC must do the right thing, and election must end at the polling units, not in court, 2027. Thank you.
Indeed, and that would be a fine place to anchor this particular conversation. Of course, with the reminder from Mr. Nwagu to you that you should also present evidence that indeed you have met all of the conditions that INEC is requiring to register you. And we hope that when next we call on you, you'll be presenting that to us. Of course, also articulating your manifesto. We must thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program. We've been talking with Mr. Ibrahim Kalgo, member of the People's Democratic Party, and of course a key member of the proposed coalition to unseat the APC in 2027. We've also had Mr. Ezenwa Nwagu, chairperson, Partners for Electoral Reform, and board member of Yaga Africa. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you for having us.
And from here, we'll head over to River State. Well, not literally, but to reflect on recent developments in that state with regards to the continued state of emergency in that state 3 months after it was first imposed. Get to know more about those issues when we return from this break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Rivers has been out of the news for a long time, but once again, it is back in the news. This is about 3 months after, if I'm correct, since the state of emergency was declared. There was a bit of a furore on June the 12th when the president made a pronouncement as to whether or not he's restoring democratic rule in that state after suspending elected officials from the State House of Assembly and the governor and his deputy, and brought in a sole administrator, which has been a controversial constitutional issue as to the effects of the latitude of discretion the president had, whether or not he has such powers in the law or not. And that's a subject before the apex court. But something has brought us to Rivers conversation, and two major issues besides others has to do with the budget of the state that has been presented to the National Assembly. The Senate committee had a conversation with the sole administrator, initially submitted 1.4 trillion. Now it's been scaled up to 1.8 trillion from what we understand, making it the second biggest budget in the federation at the sub-national level. Also the issue of the Independent Electoral Commission in the states, bringing in a non-indigene to head as chairman, which has also generated concern. Those are some of the framework of our conversation today. So we're bringing in Dr. Gift Wolu, is former Commissioner of Housing in River State and a senior lecturer at the University of Port Harcourt, joining us from Abuja studio. Also joining us is the chairman of Coalition of Rivers Youth Groups, Xavier Oscar. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning and good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Dr. Wolu, let's come to you first in Abuja studio, Dr. Wolu. And I want your immediate reaction to the Senate leader, Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, who had raised concern about nominating a non-indigene to head RISEC. And he said, paraphrasing his thought, this optics would not look good given the prevailing circumstance in Rivers, and to the effect that the sole administrator is from Rivers State. How do you interpret what this means to the coming election? I'm not sure of the date now, of the local government election.
Okay, thank you very much for that interesting question. I would say that what the sole administrator has done, and which has been confirmed by the National Assembly, is in order. Don't forget that 2 years ago we had a local government election in Rivers State conducted by retired Justice Enebeli-led Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. And that election became a subject of litigation, and in the final analysis, the outcome of that election was thrown out. But before then, people had been elected in the manner that they were elected and given the authority to run our local governments. And if you go to Rivers State today, the records are there to show that they literally looted the local governments and rendered the state useless as far as that level of governance is concerned. Don't also forget that our state, like you mentioned in your opening remarks, has been a subject of ridicule, if you like, because of the arbitrariness and incompetence of the governor at the time. And that was the reason some of us had to leave that government. Because the Supreme Court also affirmed and vindicated us when he said that there was no government in Rivers State and that the governor was a despot and unfit to govern the state. That situation led to serious political and security challenges that led to the declaration of state of emergency. Now that we are in a state of emergency, and given the fact that Rivers people somehow have been torn apart by that political situation, and people have taken sides politically, ethnically, and otherwise, and we're in a situation where we're trying to make peace and see whether we can have a semblance of stability and progress. It is only necessary that something extraordinary has to be done. And one of those things is to get a neutral person, because that's how I see it. Anybody who is not from Rivers State that is brought in, it doesn't matter where the person comes from, so long as the person is a Nigerian, to come conduct election that will be free, fair, credible, and objective, and give Rivers people the opportunity to elect for themselves those who will lead them at the local government level. It's a welcome development.
All right, Mr. Olu, let's take it to Mr. Oscar. Mr. Olu, by the way, the chairman of RISEC has not been confirmed. The committee has done their work. It's not been presented before the House, so we'll wait for that to complete before we can say properly confirmed, just for the purpose of record. Mr. Oscar, you've heard Mr. Olu and some of the questions I did ask. And how are you receiving this as far as the issue of bringing in a non-indigent, which the argument of the gentleman is to the effect that in RISEC law, there's nothing that is illegal. The RISEC did not say, the law establishing RISEC did not say it must be an indigent of the state. Mr. Olu said because of the argument around this partisanship and what brought us to the state of emergency, it's fair that a neutral person comes in. The Senate leader has also said, look, so that it's not repugnant to public conscience, we need to look critically at this. How do you characterize yours?
Thank you very much. Once again, good morning. So good morning to Nigerians. And I want to sincerely say that it's sad and a very sad situation that we have here in Rivers State. We've not got it this sad in Rivers State. And I want to sincerely say, without romancing the truth, let's just be factual and let's be realistic about what is going on in our state. Rivers State is in a serious, embarrassing situation. And we must say it there everywhere. We are embarrassed. I am embarrassed. We are all insulted. We are all embarrassed in Rivers State. It's so worrisome that a former commissioner, my brother and a friend, will sit down to say it is okay for RISEC to appoint a non-indigent as the chairman of RISEC in Rivers State, when we have capable hands in Rivers State, even when we also believe, just like I have stopped talking about Nigerian Constitution because it's obvious that Nigerian Constitution is not being respected. The Nigerian Constitution is now more like a paper that nobody respects again, including Mr. President. I must sincerely say, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu do not have respect for the rule of law, do not have respect for Rivers people, do not have respect for Nigerians who must thank it. It's unfortunate that we have a president that do not listen or pay attention to the Nigerian Constitution. So some of us as laymen do not have respect again for the Nigerian Constitution. Now we have a situation where our Constitution has been breached. Our Constitution has been condemned. Judicial process has also been condemned. That the judiciary is yet to live up to expectation. The judiciary is yet to actually regain its lost glory. It is totally an aberration appointing an indigenous or a non-indigenous of Rivers State as the research chairman. It's an aberration, and we must actually say it. It's unfortunate that we also have a state of emergency in Rivers State. We have insecurity in Benue State. The president just came back from Benue State and saw the high level of death, 200 beings that was killed. There is no state of emergency in Benue State. Mr. President cannot declare a state of emergency in any state of the north. I'm not bold to say this. That Mr. President cannot declare a state of emergency in any state of the north. I will say this very boldly. Mr. President cannot also declare any state of emergency in the east. So what happened to the South-South? Why are those of us in the South-South allowing illegality to become a situation that has become a statutory situation in Rivers State? Now we have a sole administrator, EBAT, that is on right now. Why do we have a sole administrator in Rivers State? What actually led to the state of emergency? That Mr. President or the sole administrator that a retired senior military officer tell us that ever since he took over as the sole administrator in Rivers State for complete 3 months today, that he has not been able to verify or to give us a reason why there was a state of emergency. What have we gotten? What is the verification or investigation that has been able to give out to the public that this is the...
Oh dear, we'll get to Mr. Savior later on as soon as we resolve that audio challenge, the connection challenge. But let me come to you now, Dr. Walu. Before we begin to look at the increase in the budget, still on the nomination of a non-indigene to head RCEC and other members, I'm looking at the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission law, and it says here that the governor shall appoint the chairman and members of the commission subject to confirmation by a resolution of the House of Assembly. That's on the one hand. The PDP has also been speaking on the appointment request by Mr. President and pretty much calling the appointment also into the Rivers Primary Healthcare Board, Rivers Civil Service Commission, and Rivers Local Government Service Commission a joke and a gradual slide into dictatorship. I'd like you to respond to these issues. By the way, it's Chief Bode George, who held a press conference to address these issues a few days ago, who has said this. I'd like you to respond to this.
First, we must agree that these are unusual times in Rivers State. When you say state of emergency and the governor was suspended, the deputy suspended, members of the state assembly suspended, and you have a sole administrator managing the affairs of the state, you don't expect that things will be as normal as they used to be if we had those institutions in place. And the reason why we found ourselves in this situation is clear to everybody. Like I said before, the incompetence of the governor, as he then was, and arbitrariness. And I told you that the Supreme Court clearly stated that the governor, the things that he did, including disrespect and disobedience of court orders, and all the challenges that arose because of his ascension into office, and the security situation in the state at the time. Don't forget that we at a point we started seeing explosions happening and protests every day, brothers after brothers and sisters after sisters. Deaths and bomb blasts, during protests and all of that. And where we are now is that we are trying to see whether we can move forward. And we can't have a sole administrator who doesn't have the necessary instruments to work. All these organs, the RISEC, the Civil Service Commission, and so on, are the organs that the governor or the administrator needs to be able to work. If those things are not in place, he will not be able to carry out his function. He's not a magician who will be able.
Some would say that even in these extraneous circumstances, the action is illegal. I just quoted to you from the RCEC law. In ratifying the state of emergency, the National Assembly had approved also a committee to resolve the political conflict in Rivers State. Why has that committee not led to a significant resolution of the conflict? And why the hurry for the sole administrator, who is a retired a military general, a military official, conducting a democratic local government election in Rivers State?
Rivers State and Rivers people, I think, are comfortable with what is happening today. And the reason is simple. We are coming from somewhere. And where we are coming from is worse than where we are now. And we are hopeful that we may get away from here to the promised land. And it is through consultation. See, as we speak today, there are no elected local government officials in Rivers State. And we must have people who will run those areas for the dividends of democracy to get to the people of the grassroots. If Rivers people have agreed and empowered the sole administrator to go ahead and do these things, I think that we should allow it to fly. Don't forget that many months ago, Rivers people were not able to move freely in the state. Rivers people were not able to know clearly. For example, we didn't have a budget. Business people were in a state of uncertainty. They didn't know what to do. In all the states of the Federation, they have budgets. It's only in Rivers State that we don't have budget. Now that we're trying to have one, I don't see, let us allow these things to fly. At the end of the day, if elections are conducted, we have people who are Rivers people in that commission. It's just that the head is not a Rivers person. At the end of the day, we should be bothered about them conducting free and fair and credible election, different from the kind of charade that Justice Enebeli and co. gave us, so that we can have Rivers people elected by Rivers people running the local governments and other affairs of the state.
All right, let's take it to Mr. Oscar. It's quite an interesting conversation because I'm just wrapping my head. Excuse me. There's a lot of constitutional argument as to even the legality or otherwise, because there's no such thing as sole administrator in the Constitution. So the argument over the discretionary latitude of the president to appoint a sole administrator is contentious. My colleague has also read the issue of the RESEC appointment, which has to be presented by the governor to the State House of Assembly. So one is really wondering, how are we navigating this whole conundrum around the law, because we operate a constitutional democracy. But Mr. Oscar, what Mr. Wall is saying, there has to be a way forward. In your books, let's accept without conceding that this is contentious. What is the way forward? Mr. Oscar, yes.
What I was considering as the way forward was that the June 12 that just passed, that Mr. President would have used the opportunity June 12 to have corrected the mistake that he made. I want to believe, I want to assume, or Rivers people want to believe that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, made a mistake. Actually, a governor, even when the Constitution says it's told like that is a constitutional breach, just is submitted by legal practitioners. That is obvious that what Mr. President did against 1999 Nigerian Constitution as amended. If the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually wanted to correct we are thinking that Mr. President talk about busybody people. Now, why is Mr. President listening to naysayers? Why is Mr. President listening to busybody people? Because let us leave Constitution. Let us leave all this thing that is going on and say the truth. And what's the truth? The thing is that the problem in Rivers is purely political. There is nothing about any other thing anything can say about Rivers State situation. What we are suffering in Rivers State is purely political crisis. And what are we as political crisis? Just one man. I made bold to say that just one man want to be at the ends and want to be head and the North in Rivers State. Who are from the FCC, Barrister Yes on base 1 week, the former governor of Rivers State is the major problem we're having in Rivers State. Let's not pen the truth. That is the obvious truth, and this is obvious fact that the problem we have in Rivers State is, as of years of decade, FCC trying to take charge of Rivers State. He's in charge of Rivers State resources. I'm going to say no. Rivers never have any of it to say no. action even in River. When he was on River,
all right.
He was around even when.
Pardon me, Mr. Wallo. I'd have to come in there. The conditions for your audio are pretty much imperfect and making it difficult for us to hear you clearly. Let's hope that that is resolved. But as we coast home, Dr. Wallo, I'd like you to respond to the most recent report about the increase in the budget of Rivers State from 1.4 trillion to 1.8 trillion, an increase by about 400 billion naira. And the sole administrator is saying, quote now, that it is my well-considered opinion that the expenditure were clearly stated, citing gaps in data that affected the accuracy of the initial estimates. That would be of the 2024 budget that was 1.4 trillion. Is this justification good enough to increase the River State budget for 2025 by 400 billion naira?
First, if we understand the process of budgeting, you'll agree with me that there are economic and social assumptions that govern the figures that you see in the budget. For example, the issue of oil benchmark. Now, presently, you know that the war between Israel and Iran and other geopolitical, tensions here and there have led to the increase in the price of oil. That ordinarily will mean increase in the monies accruing to states and the federal government from oil proceeds. And if you look at that alone, you may see a difference in what you probably proposed before this war and the increase that it has brought about. So in my opinion, I think that what they have done is to look at what the former governor had done, dust it up, see areas where there can be increases or decreases, and then they are giving us something that is more realistic given the present circumstances in which we find ourselves. And for me, what is important is not how much is in the budget. It is the capacity of the system to generate the money and to wisely spend it for the benefit of the people. So if you budget 1.4 trillion and you make 1.8 trillion, you will have a surplus. If you budget 1.8 trillion and you are able to realize 1.4 trillion, you have a deficit. But what matters is your ability to balance these figures and have a situation where the budget becomes a document that the people of the state can use to make decisions that benefit them, either as individuals or business people. So I don't know, there may be other reasons beyond the one adduced by the sole administrator. But again, we must appreciate the fact that the National Assembly is an institution that we all pray and wish that they are strong enough to do their oversight and other functions, as enshrined in the Constitution. And what they shouldn't do, what I would not expect the National Assembly or any assembly for that matter to do, is to receive a document from anybody and just approve it without some kind of input. If they have looked at the document and, of course, talking with the governor and other officials of government, they think that there is need to increase it, and they have the basis, the assumptions that guide that kind of decision, we should allow it to fly.
All right, let's come to Oscar as we wind down. This will be, Mr. Oscar, let's have your take on this issue of increasing the budget by 400 billion. In fact, let me read what Senator Kwame Bamidele noted, that the increase in the budget was partly informed by a 50 billion naira allocation aimed at settling outstanding pension liabilities, a move described as key to the ongoing peace process in the state. I just needed to read that line for you. Mr. Oscar, you have 1 minute, please.
Let's first of all underline the first thing. Budget padding is first a criminal offense in this country. It has been up for a very serious, before the previous administration, up to this administration, it's all very fair we speak. First, how about getting to your question? Who have to make the new state budget to be submitted? Is it Mr. President that we have a constitutional breach, that Nigeria is now like a country without a constitution? Nigeria is now working without a constitution, and there is our constitution becoming a paper, a document that could be used as toiletry. We no longer. It is a wrong decision, a criminal offense. Even EFC was supposed to look at such situations. What is holding the EFC to actually go against or arrest Mr. President? The Senate President is not having the immunity not arrested. Why is the President not arrested? Why are the National Assembly actually doing this? Totally, it's a total slap of Rivers people.
All right.
Let's also look at from perspective. Before trying to look at who has it right, if there was a need for the budget paddling. Now, there is a crisis in Rivers State. Mr. President has the responsibility to actually restore the rule of Rivers. That is
all right, Mr. Oscar.
Mr. President.
Yes, my apologies. You've leveled some allegations that I would have wanted you to substantiate and some of the statements you made, but the network didn't allow us to hear everything you were saying. But we hope we can find the time to further this conversation as long as the issue of Rivers State is concerned. It's 3 months down the line out of the 6 months that was slapped on the state in terms of state of emergency and suspending elected officials. But that's how much we can go with the conversation. Dr. Gift Walu is a former commissioner of housing, senior lecturer at the University of Port Harcourt. Comrade Xavier Oscar, chairman coalition of Rivers Youth Groups, also joining us from virtually. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. We appreciate it. And may there be peace in Rivers. Okay, let's get to what you're saying as the trends. We call it the dailies on the pages of social media. And the first one has to do with Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan being arraigned by the federal government 3-count charge of alleged defamation against Senate President Godswill Akpabio and former Governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello. Well, the court has granted her bail, 50 million naira, as well as the case for the trial will begin sometime later in the year, I think in September. But Jane Bond, this is what you're saying. I stand with Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan. In a country where the truth is treated like a crime and corruption wears agbada, they can try, it's real courage to speak up. They can try to silence her, but Nigerians are watching, and history never forgets the voices that stood for justice.
We can't miss this one out, Jeffrey, as we look at front pages online. The destruction of APC billboards in Kaduna State. Let's have that one. Kano residents destroy APC 2027 campaign billboards. There you have it. Had we enough time, we would have loved to also, highlight this during our conversation with the National Secretary of the APC while he was with us. So why this is happening, of course, perhaps we'll get more information in the coming days. Does this have anything to do with the projections of a realignment for the position of the vice president in 2027?
We don't know.
Given that, Kano is a huge voting bloc as far as political strategizing is concerned for any presidential election. 20 million votes, I believe, are from Kano. That's if, the entire
yes,
registered electorate.
No, but we got around 1 point something million. But
yeah.
I think it's not right to destroy anything. There are authorities to do these things. We can also speak to the fact that this is not campaign season yet. I think it's too early for some of these campaigns, but we also must condemn acts of destruction. The authorities could have been called in to properly, take out whatever it is, but this can lead to chaos, so we must state that as much as possible. So let's get to what happened in Benue. Pastor Paul and Angel of Dominion, the Dominion Church,
yes, indeed,
rejected a 30 million cash gift from Kebbi government. I think he did a crusade there. So just let's take a listen to what happened.
Our governor, His Excellency Dr. Nasser Idris Abdullah Ngondu, a faithful governor and also a comrade governor, has approved the donation of sum of 30 million naira to the organizing committee.
If If there is anything like orphanage, if there is anything like that, at your discretion, please apply this amount of money to it. No. It will not be received. It will not be received. They are trying to, demonstrate hospitality, that this is their nature and all of that. The hospitality is very, very clear. It's the nature of and all of that.
We donated some sum of amount, which he said is his nature. They don't accept, because whatever he is doing it for the sake of God.
Well, that was a very diplomatic way of saying no thanks by the pastor, saying, look, we don't need the money, but we appreciate the kind gesture, the hospitality. We've sorted out ourselves, but this money is public money, perhaps, or whatever. Can use it for other things for public good. I think he was very respectful, and it should be commended, Pastor Paul Enenche, Dr. Paul Enenche.
I think it was the more diplomatic way of saying that this money can address bigger issues of poverty within the society.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time, and company will be back again next week to bring you a lot more as far as things are evolving in the polity. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. Have a great weekend.
Yes, indeed. Sunrise Daily is up next. Don't forget, so stay on with Channels Television. We'll return next week with another round of bumper editions. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.